Welcome to Power Couples Rock Live version 4. I think this is 4. Am I right? Okay. Whew. I'm losing count. These things are so much fun. I lose all sense of math and science.
You didn't have math sense anyway. So
this is true. This is true. Welcome to Power Couples Rock Live. My name is Chris. This is my most beautiful wife, Sonia, who reminds me every day that I'm not a mathematician. And
that's why he married me. Hi, Power Couples.
I love it.
And I would like to introduce to the world our most favorite power couple in the universe. Please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Carlos and Catherine Green.
Yeah. What's up, Power Couples?
Hey, Power Couples.
Thank you for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate your support.
Oh, yes. It's so good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we've got some people that are joining already. And,
awesome.
You know, there's some excitement out there. We're seeing the numbers tick up. So those of you who are joining for the first time, let me do a little housekeeping. Okay. When you join, we want to hear from you. This is not, hey, if you guys have been on Zoom calls all week, you guys have been shut in, you guys are working at home maybe or whatever. And so now it's like, oh, here's another thing where I just kind of sit back and I'm in my pajamas or whatever you're in. That's cool. You could be in your pajamas, but this isn't a Zoom call. This is what we call virtual community. We want to hear from you. We want to, when you guys join, all these people I'm seeing joining, there's another couple right there. Let us know who you are, even if we don't know you. We want to know who you are, where you're joining us from. Every couple of weeks we do this, and we have a great time doing this. And one of the things I love mostly about this is I see new people every time from new cities that I didn't know were power couples and a part of the Power Couples Rock community. So please, if you would chime in when you get here, give us a shout out, and we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, let us know where you're from. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the first 5. So for the when we start this thing out, we like to start it out. We like to set the table. If you listen to our podcast, we like to set the table. We like to set the tone. We like to get things moving in the right direction. Before we start rolling to our special guests, okay? And again, if this is your first time, this is not some normal I'm going to talk at you kind of thing. We not only bring you a featured guest, you know, we bring you licensed marriage therapists who are helping you get through whatever you've got to go through. But we also have musical guests. So, Carlos, I'm not going to ruin anything. I'm going to let you kind of talk about that, and then we're going to roll into our first 5 if we could.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you again, viewers, for being a part of our community. We really appreciate that. I just want to reiterate the mission of Power Couples Rock is to develop a community of couples through purposeful pathways, and Power Couples Rock live show is one of those purposeful pathways where we can actually establish masterful marriages. And it all is built on Philippians 1, 9, and 11, where we want you to know how to love each other well, all for the glory of God. So I am ready to get powered up. And so our guests tonight, we've got a licensed professional counselor, Osei Harvey, who are dear friends of ours, all of ours. And our music makers tonight are Yen and Bien Nguyen from all the way from Savannah, Georgia. So please stay on. You don't want to miss this wonderful married duo that just has a great voice, great voices, right?
Melody, yes.
We couldn't even like prep for the show because I was singing their song. You know, the lucky.
I know.
The thing I get the lucky opportunity to do a sound check with our musical guests just to make sure that it sounds just right. And you guys are in for a treat. Their voice together, I mean, it's like butter. It's awesome. It really is. So
can I just do a couple of things, shout outs? Because I just see Adam Hildebrandt is watching, Dan Jordan is watching, Karen Huddleston is watching.
Karen Huddleston.
Yes, Gwen Dameron is watching. Carmen Frazier is watching. They're just coming all in. Myron Head is watching. So great people. They keep coming in, so we love it.
Excellent. So let's roll, if we could, into the first five. I don't know who's up first. Is Sonia? Do we want to start with
I
you?
think it's me. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
so. I have a quote that I would like to bring to you guys this evening, and that's kind of part of the first five that we're going to do every week. And this one says, "Great marriages don't happen by luck or by accident. They are the result of a consistent investment of time, thoughtfulness, forgiveness, affection, prayer, mutual respect, and a rock solid commitment between a husband and a wife." So
Oh.
something to think about. Yeah. Does your marriage have a bunch of those qualities? If so, sounds rock solid to me.
I like that. I like the fact that it started off like it doesn't happen by luck or by
No,
accident.
it
You
does
know, it lets
not.
you know, like,
It's
you know,
work.
we're not in control, right?
Yes.
You know, so that's good stuff.
It's the quote to note.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. The quote to
Okay,
note.
we
We
have
have to
to move.
remember that.
Okay.
Well, I want to add to a little bit what Sonia was saying. She did the quote to note, but I'm going to give some interesting or fun facts about marriage. And so I thought this was really interesting. And it goes along with the topic that we're going to be talking about. I had to do some research to find out 4 popular fears about marriage.
Wow.
4 popular fears about marriage. The first one is, what if I marry the wrong person and regret it? That's the first fear. The second one, will I lose my personal identity if I get married?
Wow.
That's the second fear. The third fear, most popular fear, is what if I fall out of love or stop feeling attracted to my spouse? And what if we stop having sex? Oh my goodness. So
It's still 8. It's still 8:00. It's a family show.
Exactly.
We got
what if we stop having intimacy? You know, we use
Intimacy.
Okay. Anyway, the fourth popular fear about marriage is, will my marriage turn out like my parents did? Now that can be great, or they cannot be so great. But those, after researching, those were some of the most popular fears that people had about marriage. And I know we have all types of fears in our marriage, which is going to be marrying well to what we're going to be talking about. But I thought that was some interesting facts about that.
Good job, babe.
I like it.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Carlos, you know, I can't think of a better segue to roll this over to our featured guest. I know, you know, we always, when we do this thing, you know, we want to be real in what we want to talk about. And I know sometimes that, you know, in a public forum like we're in now on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter, sometimes you're not comfortable sharing something that may be personal, and that's totally understandable, right? That's, but one of those things that I think, if we're being honest with each other, especially during this time, is we can, to Catherine's point, we could be fearful of things. And so, Carlos, I'll let you introduce our special guest, because I know, you know, again, you want to talk about keeping it real. This man is a brother of ours, is a member of our local community, of our local Power Couples Rock community. And I know his wife's going to join us later. She's a little busy with the kids, which is totally understandable because they got their hands full. But Carlos, if you would, please introduce our special guest.
Well, thank you, viewers. We're excited about our guest tonight. Our topic tonight is freeing yourself from fear. And we have a licensed professional counselor. His name is Osei Harvey. And let me give you a little bit of information about him. He's an independent licensed counselor in Georgia with over 15 years of experience. He's a native of Sacramento, California, but he moved to Georgia when he went to school at Morehouse College in pursuit of a degree in psychology. He obtained that degree and then went on to get his master's degree in counseling from Argosy University. Now, he strongly believes in a therapeutic approach that is mostly accommodating for positive change to his clients, which range in cognitive behavioral therapy, existential therapy, and recovery-oriented cognitive therapy, all considered in the process of discovering one's unique solution. And he works with children, adolescents, and adults in mental health and substance recovery. So let's welcome to the show our friend, Mr. Osei Harvey.
Woo!
Hey, Power Couple.
What's up? What's up?
What's up,
How we
Osei?
Doing well. Good to be on.
So
Man,
glad to
thank
have
you so much for being on our show tonight.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And I have to say this, right? So I think it's been about a year now since you all have really started to put this thing together. I think we were at one point trying to see what we can do with it. And since then it's taken off and I've seen the success. I've gotten quite a bit of nuggets, from the previous show. So kudos to you guys and the success of everything going on with the podcast as well as the live streaming. So this has been a great, great deal. So we appreciate you for opening this up, especially for married couples that need it. So great job. Power Couples Rock.
Sir.
Yes, we're creating a collective community, and we want to be able to have different pathways, as Carlos said earlier about our mission. And so we're just grateful to have our community to grow and have information where we can sustain our marriages, where we can have healthy relationships, no matter what situations we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So we're delighted to have you here. And I'm just excited about the topic and want to just jump in and join in and want our viewers, as you are viewing this and you think of any questions, please put them in the box. Ask those questions so that, we can have some strong engagement as we go along.
Great. Thank you. So let's start off, Osei. You're like a brother to us. And we met you probably, it's been about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years at this point. And you've always had just a high level of integrity and character in everything that you do. So we just want to know, when did you actually, or why did you get into this particular career?
Yeah. So, if I go back to my childhood, I could remember times like being on the playground and children just venting to me, right? So I've always had that listening ear. I guess it was a gift of empathy, being able to just listen into kind of the core of what individuals were going through, what they were experiencing, and then helping them to find a solution, right? And even if I didn't, it was just a matter of listening, providing that listening ear. So I think I've always kind of had that characteristic. In addition to mother, shouts out to my mother, she's actually a retired social worker. So I've grown up kind of observing her and watching her really give back to the community through social work. And I think it's just in the blood, right? So primarily, I just want to make sure that people have a sense of freedom, especially mental freedom, stability, and whatever they need to do to be able to get there. I want to be a part of that journey to kind of help them through that. So I think that's been kind of a gift that's been given to me and has been exercised for, as you mentioned, 15 plus years now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's dive right in. Our topic is freeing yourself from fear. So I know you're going to set us up with a case study, something a little bit different tonight. Set us up with a case study so that we can set the context for the discussion tonight. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So before we actually jump into the case study, and I definitely want our viewers to kind of jump in and open up their therapeutic ear and participate. But before I get into that, I just wanted to kind of give a definition of what fear is, right? So we kind of have these separate definitions of fear. We've got the acronym, I just wanted to make sure that we kind of put a specific clinical definition to what fear is. Okay, so according to the American Psychological Association, it says that fear is a basic, intense emotion aroused by the detection of imminent threat involving an immediate alarm reaction that mobilizes the organism by triggering a set of psychological changes. All right, so let me break that down in layman's terms. I know there's a lot there, right? So fear is experienced when avoiding or escaping an aversive stimuli, and that anxiety is experienced when entering a potentially dangerous situation. So if you could kind of picture the two, you got fear on one side and anxiety on the other, and fear actually fuels anxiety, right? So fear happens in the moment, whereas anxiety occurs when you are thinking about something that you're going to be anticipating, or maybe something that will be coming in the near future. And then you have some of those symptoms that may arise that's difficult to kind of alleviate, right? So I definitely wanted to just kind of explain the definition of fear and how that couples with anxiety, and how that even plays a part in today right now, especially with everything going on with COVID. So let's jump into the case study. So we have a young lady, she's 29, and let's just say her name is Vicky, right? So Vicky has one child who's 18 months old. And Vicky now is at a point where she is experiencing some great fear. Number one, she does live with depression. Okay, and so she's been living with depression for about 10 years now. She does have a history of suicide. She's attempted suicide twice in her lifetime. Now she's married, and as of right now, her husband has been furloughed. No, not only has her husband been furloughed, but she's actually been cut in her hours of working, right? So here's the anxiety, anticipating what's next in terms of our financial future, okay? Just recently, she just experienced something very, a huge crisis. She had a best friend that had died by suicide, which she partly witnessed. And what I mean by partly witnessed is that when she was calling this individual and couldn't get in contact with him, and his phone went straight to voicemail, she went to the home, knocked on the door. He didn't answer the door. And then she called the police after 45 minutes. Well, finally, after she calls the police, he comes out. On the route there, he manages to go into his truck, went back into the home, and ended up killing himself. Oh. So now we have, a young lady that has so much going on, not only with her own mental health, but now she's experienced her best friend dying by suicide. And this has been a tragic situation for her to deal with, on top of managing her own mental health. So I bring that case study up because this is what our society looks like, especially for those that may be experiencing a mental health or may have been diagnosed. You have these additional things that come along in life. Life does not stop and things just happen. Mm-hmm. And so they get to the point where they're at a fork in the road. It's like, okay, which way do I go in this situation? I'm stuck. I feel stagnant. I have no answers, and I have no idea how to get through this. And so this is a very real situation, right? And it really brings up the idea of fear, especially when you see it on television, when you see it in social media. A lot of people are getting, the life virus, and what does this look like for our future? So there's so many factors that come along with this, specifically for individuals that live with a mental health diagnosis.
I know there's like a lot of probably stigma around when you just use the word, mental, and these people who've been diagnosed. But what about some of us who it's not really a diagnosis, but it's important that we put our mental mindset in check. So, talk to us a little bit about the stigma that surrounds that can help us to come out of that and realize that it is healthy. It is a healthy way to do a check-in or have a mental wellness mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So of course, with mental health, unfortunately, it does have a bad stigma because, we place it in the category of looking crazy, or, because I have a diagnosis that, I am not like your average person, which is totally not the case. As we know, a lot of individuals live in this world that experience anxiety and fear and depression, yes, and bipolar, everything across the board that are not diagnosed, right? So it's a really hard step to come out of the idea that I am not like the average, right? And to admit that I have an issue here. that's a very hard step, and the acknowledgement part is very difficult. So I would say, to an individual that may be experiencing, whether it be, anxiety or just are in a funk or in a low, not functioning the way that they used to, kind of getting away from their baseline, maybe just do some research, and ask the questions. Okay, what does this look like for me? What does this really mean? Not with an approach of, should I be diagnosed? No, not necessarily. This is just a beginning of, okay, how can I be able to nip the situation in the bud and be able to create some answers for ourselves, right? Now, does this mean, again, that this is like, we have to go into a place of, diagnosing and, no, that's totally not the case. But we want to be real and say, hey, as a human being, I have issues too, right? And that I can take the proper steps to be able to get the help that I need. And there is nothing wrong with that. And I just want to make sure that our viewers understand that sometimes we just need to accept where we are and take the steps and say, it's okay.
So, Osei, you mentioned research. What maybe are some practical points and areas where if someone wants to open up the computer or the phone or whatever, and where do they start when they start, when they want to figure things out?
Yeah. So, everything out in the internet world is true, right?
That's right. Exactly. Right.
Let's preface that. So we have to be very careful at the sites that we go on to, because anybody can put anything out there. Credible sites are, again, like I said, the American Psychological Association. They have specific steps on what an individual can do to take those steps toward the right direction of making sure that they're approaching mental health in a healthy fashion. I would say also, of course, Google has access to, especially therapeutic offices that may be in your area. I would also say, look into your insurance company as well. They may be able to connect you to specific doctors or psychiatrists, psychologists or therapists that may be in your area. And then at that point, you can do your own research to see if that would be a good fit for you. So I would say, start with those two.
Yeah, we've got a question from Dan Jordan. Do you think paying close attention to current news adds to anxiety? That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in addition to everything that we see in the news on a regular basis, right? This is, with the pandemic, this has been icing on the cake because, of course, we have no idea what direction this is going to go in. As a matter of fact, it's been talk about there being another wave and, so on and so forth. So, when we view this stuff, of course, we become vulnerable to it, right? And if we don't have any filters, then we're likely to really walk into that web of anxiety. And then before you know it, we're kind of digging ourselves a hole. Which kind of leads into what I call the invisible shovel paradigm. Okay, so the invisible shovel paradigm is you come across a situation where you are not knowing what direction it's going to go in, and before you know it, because of the fear, right, you begin to subconsciously dig yourself into a hole, right? To a point where you don't even recognize how far you're falling into this hole. And then you get to a point where you're so deep into it that you can only see nothing but dirt and darkness. So a lot of the dirt that you've been experiencing or watching, or even some things that may have been kind of resurfacing from your past, some things that have been unaddressed, they are coming up, they're resurfacing, they're falling up to the top. And in addition to that, you see nothing but darkness. So there's no pathway to hope. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And then you get to a point where you almost become stagnant. So we've got to be very careful, especially in these times, to try to keep the invisible shovel out of our hands. And there's definitely ways to do that.
Osei, what are some of the top things that you see that people are fearing these days? Either fearing or are anxious about and worried about. Are you seeing an increase in any particular ones, I guess?
Absolutely. I would say, for most individuals, especially those that have families, the fate of their job, what direction their job is going to go in.
Yeah.
As you know, and as many of our viewers know, and may be watching, they may have been furloughed. They may have had to cut back on some hours. And so it has a trickle down effect, right?
Yep.
Especially for individuals that know that, hey, if I'm not working, this is definitely going to have an impact on my family. So definitely work raises a sense of anxiety. I want to read something to you just to kind of answer. And this actually comes from the American Psychological Association. And it says, these are some statistics here. It says nearly half Americans, 48%, are anxious about the possibility of getting coronavirus. All right. That's nearly half. Nearly 4 in 10 Americans are anxious about becoming seriously ill or dying from coronavirus. All right.
Wow.
So let's think about that. Right. So, of course, it's definitely safe to keep things within home. But at the same time, sometimes it can be paralyzing to where you don't want to leave the house at all. All right.
Yeah. So let me get this straight. You said 4 out of 10 Americans are fearful of dying from coronavirus.
Are anxious about becoming seriously ill or dying of coronavirus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can just kind of sense.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I had no idea it was going to be that high.
I didn't either.
Absolutely. I mean, but if you think about it, rightfully so, because this is something, again, that's been unprecedented. This is new for everyone, that, we have to deal with this serious issue, and we really don't know what to do. We don't know what's next. So as a result, the anxiety level does peak.
Go ahead, Captain.
I was going to ask, what are some practical steps that people can take to help them get to, I guess, reduce fear or remove it altogether?
Yeah, very, very good question. So I have an acronym. Of course, in a situation where you feel paralyzed and you're stagnant and you just don't know which way to go, I have an acronym of ACT. All right. So ACT, you act on it. All right. So the first word, the first letter is acknowledge. All right. So let's take the first step and then just acknowledging that, hey, I'm fearful right now. I don't know what my next steps are. I have no idea what direction this may go, what path this may go down. And I'm just in a place where I just don't know. So I think if we get to a point where we can just at least acknowledge where we are, that's a huge step. All right. That's 50% of the battle. Right. Number 2 with C is challenge. Challenge yourself to kind of make that step of faith. Right. And facing that fear. Okay. So facing that fear may look like having that support system. Right. And maybe, if you're going to outside, if you're fearful of going outside, maybe just going to a park and walking around the park, and maybe doing that for just a few minutes, taking some deep breaths and letting yourself know that, hey, after it's all said and done, I'm okay. I think I'm fine. There's nothing that has happened to me. I'm in a good space, right? So challenge yourself to kind of take that leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
And then D is tackling, right? So, of course, if you think about football, you come face to face with that running back that's 220, and you're like, maybe 185. You're going to try to do the best you can to tackle him, right? But in most cases, you can't do it by yourself.
That's right.
So you need a team of supporters that's going to be there to tackle this issue with you, right? Whether it be someone that is in therapy, whether it be a family member, whether it be, your local minister, pastor, your community. These are individuals that's going to help you to really hone in on some of these fears and tackle it head on, and know that, at the end of it all, you're going in a good direction.
I love that because it's that acronym is very proactive. It's like,
Right.
Yes.
acknowledge, challenge, and tackle is a great proactive way of looking at it. We've got a couple more questions. We've got an active Osei, you've created an active community out here.
Exactly.
Awesome.
But we've got a great question here from Eric Montgomery. With all that we've learned about mental health and wellness, why do you think it's still so hard for many in the African American community to seek help or a healthy environment for healing from hurts, habits, and hangups?
Great question.
That is a great question.
That
Great.
is a
Thank you,
very,
Chris.
very, very good question. In my history, I've noticed, and I think, especially those within the African American community can attest to this, especially those of faith, is that in most cases, when anything comes up relating to fear or just being apprehensive about something, what do? We take it to God. We take it to God in prayer. We put it in His hands, and then we listen, and then we hear how to move forward from there, right? So that is great. And, I'm a man of faith, and I totally believe in that as well. In addition to that, there are individuals that God has placed upon this earth, like myself, who have been qualified to be able to step in and to assist and to guide individuals in this journey, which can be very, very challenging. Now, there's some things that, growing up, through our childhood, we've swept under the rug. We've kind of just ignored it. We've caused it to lie dormant. And as a result, those things have a tendency to create what I call a soul buildup, right? So, as we all know, if you're not eating the right foods, there are medical consequences, right?
Yes.
So same thing applies even with mental health, right? So, some crisis or things that we've experienced growing up, in most cases, we may sweep it under the rug, not deal with it, not acknowledge it, and it's still there. And it's not until we get into, maybe our adulthood, or we have the challenges of parenthood, where some of these things that we've allowed to just kind of suppress, and now they are rising up to the surface because we're being challenged by these things. These things look familiar, and because they haven't been dealt with or addressed, they cause some challenges even within our adulthood, right? So I think a lot of this, I think, kind of stems from the fear of not taking it to a professional, but going with what we feel is comfortable, which is, taking it to church or taking it to the altar. And like I said, all of that is great. It's wonderful. But just like a doctor within a medical room, or just like a doctor within an ER, you have professional individuals that have been trained and have gone to school to be able to address some of those issues that have not been able to really been talked about for maybe a number of years. And I think that's important, especially in the African American community, that we realize that.
So with your client base, if you had to put a percentage on your client base as far as the number of African Americans that you see or that seek out help, what's that percentage? Well, what would that be?
Yeah, well, with my caseload, I would say probably between 15 and 20% that I service are African Americans.
Okay. And then if you had to break it down between men and women who are African American, what percentage would that be? Between that 20%.
Within that 20, yeah. So within that 20%, I would say probably about 15 to 20% are male, whereas the remainder of African Americans are females. Wow. Yeah.
Osei, so I love how you brought the spiritual aspect into the mix, and and we speak so much about the mental aspect of it early on, and you brought in the spiritual aspect of it as well. But and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what about the physical aspect of it? So we've got another comment from Dan here. How about just going out for a good run and sweat the worry right out of you, right? So, I mean, obviously that's keeping it light, but I think it's very, it's very important to make sure that the physical activity helps, because it's all connected, right? If you're feeling better in your body, it's connected to the spiritual and mental as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I definitely challenge my clients to take into consideration. Is this is also a part of what is called self-care, right?
Yes.
So, we want to make sure that we handle not only our mental, but let's be holistic, right? So let's make sure that we are getting out and going for walks, or maybe doing in-home workouts. Everything is on YouTube now, so finding that YouTube video that's appropriate for you, and if you need to modify some exercises, but knowing that you're getting that physical help is also therapeutic. It creates an outlet, and it releases stress, especially if you're at home all day, with the children and, having to work, you should find some time, whether it be 30 minutes to an hour, just to be able to create some outlet for some physical outlet. So that's very, very important. That comes along with self-care.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I wanted to ask about, I know that there is a negative outlook on fear, and is there a healthy side to having fear? Have you seen that, or is there some strategies or whatever? Because sometimes it's so okay to be scared to walk out and see a snake standing sitting in the driveway, right?
Or maybe
that's
fearful,
healthy. Run in the house.
That's right. Let's hope so.
But you may be fearful of a new job that you're going into, or fearful of your marriage that you're getting ready to go into, or that you're getting wedded with. So that's that kind of anxiety and stress that comes along with these major decisions that you're making in life. Is there a healthy aspect to that?
Sure. And I think these things are biologically normal, right?
Got it.
So going into that interview, if you don't get the sweaty palms and the heart palpitations, ask yourself, am I human? I think that just comes with the territory.
That's right.
So anything that, and they call it the fight or flight concept, right? So, if you come into a situation where you see something or experience something that may be unfamiliar, or you may have seen it before, that, maybe you experienced something that may have been traumatic in the past and you see it again, you're going to have a response to that. I think that's just kind of the way that God has wired us to be, right? Just to have some of those responses in those moments. So yeah, it is healthy, even when you kind of have that gut feeling like something is not right, and you begin to feel some symptoms of fear. That's totally okay, because I think in those God too well.
Okay. So with the last question that we have before we bring your wife on, if there's someone who's experiencing fear, stress, anxiety, how can the community around them help them actually overcome some of their stresses or anxieties?
Good question. So, we understand.
I think we just lost him.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
I'm going everywhere. So I think that we all know as believers that love conquers all, right? I think there are moments where we may come up with one individual that may just not themselves, maybe seen some change with them. I think especially in this time as believers, we need to open up our eyes and recognize that there are individuals around us that are really in a tough place. And so, we can't be afraid to open ourselves up to those individuals, and whether it be providing a listening ear, or just maybe engaging them with something that they love to do, some of their interests, always making ourselves available to individuals that we see are kind of, on the rocker a little bit, and provide that support and that assistance. I think that's extremely important. And I think that's of course, that's what Christ wants us to do.
Yes.
He stepped in so many times, in periods where individuals have been anxious, even as we read the word, and what did he do? He alleviated that anxiety by what? Love.
Yes.
So I think that's the primary thing that we have to keep in mind in this time, that we exercise that. Yeah.
I have a
Sonia.
quote that I think we need
Yes.
to note right now. I
Yeah.
have been seeing this a lot, and I think it's something that if our viewers out there are dealing with any sort of anxiety, something to remember. This says, "Worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only saps today of its joy." So the only
Wow.
thing that, being anxious and worried in the moment just takes away the joy that you can experience today. So
Absolutely.
something to keep in mind, I think, as you try to get through all of this.
Well, yeah, and I love too, Osei, what you were saying just there, because it's like, we've talked about this before with everything that's going on with the pandemic and everything. I think it's real easy for us to think internally about ourselves. I mean, you said it yourself.
Right.
40% of people are worried that they're going to, be very sick or potentially die from this thing, and they're worried about themselves. And what we need to be doing is we need to be reaching out to other people and
That's right.
and helping them in their space.
Yeah, we're the body, right? We're the hands and feet of Christ, and I think it's our responsibility to be able to reach in these uncertain times, to provide hope for individuals that just can't see it in front of them. So, absolutely, to your point, Chris, I agree.
Well, I know that Sonia had actually given us a quote a couple of shows ago that says that in the Bible, help me if I'm wrong, Sonia, but you said that in the Bible, fear not is actually communicated 365 times in the Bible. So that's for every day of the year.
Oh, awesome.
Fear not.
Yes.
And so I think that's just so grounded how you're mixing the spiritual with the professional.
Did you notice that Carlos was asking Sonia for a biblical reference? I mean, and this is being recorded.
She quoted it. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Hey, sometimes we gotta lean on our friends and our partners, right?
I love it.
Hey, that's my social support.
There you go.
And thinking about leaning on people and social support. Please bring your wife on.
Absolutely, let's bring her on.
You can see this beautiful woman that you married.
We slide over here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my beautiful wife, Osei Harvey.
What's up, Miss Ebony?
Right now, but we got a great community that we're loving her.
Look at this beautiful power couple. Where are the kids? Are they in bed already?
No.
Yeah, so the kids are away. The kids are away. As you can see, it's very quiet. So we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to make sure that this would be a good running show. If not, they would be right in here giving their input. I promise you.
Oh my God. That is good. So tell us about how long you guys have been married and how many kids do you guys have? And Ebony, what do you do?
Okay. Well, hey, everyone. My name is Ebony Harvey, and I am originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I met Osei here. I came to Atlanta for my undergrad in '97, and I was finishing up my undergrad, and I met my hunk.
I love that. I love it.
I met my hunk, and we got married in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So
we married for 13 years. It'll be 14 years.
June.
Woo! Yes.
June 24th.
24th. Yeah.
13 years married.
And we have 4 no more children.
4 no more. Beautiful children.
Beautiful.
Y'all have beautiful kids.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
I was gonna say 11-year-old son, 5-year-old daughter, and twin boys that are now 2.5.
Yes, 2.5.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm an educator. I've actually been teaching for 15 years. So along the way, I've adopted children, but from Osei and I, 4 no more. But I love what I do, and the school year is almost over. Praise God.
I don't know. The parents miss you.
Right?
The parents miss you so much.
Right.
They want summer school.
Well, I miss all of my students. I really do.
Yes.
I miss them sorely. But, you know, things happen and we just had to figure it out. Digital learning has definitely been on the come up, and we are definitely figuring out how to make sure if anything were to happen again, we are on top of it. Yes, I've learned.
Well, let us just say we appreciate you, teachers, and we certainly thank you for the work that you do. Yes. So
I love it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy your summer.
Yes.
All right.
Just a note: teachers are always working.
That's correct.
That's
correct.
Put that out there.
That is correct.
We are always working, honestly. So it will be a great time off, but we are still working, thinking. Our brains are always going, thinking about what we can do better for our students. So.
Great.
So we've got a question that's come in for Osei.
One more, yes, I saw that.
We could, and this is actually Sheila, who's on Wayne's page.
Wow.
Okay. I don't know if she just kind of hijacked the page or whatever. We won't ask about that yet. What would you say to someone who's missing family terribly? I haven't been able to hug my children or grandchild in seemingly forever. I also miss my mom. So that's Sheila, who's on Wayne's page. What would we say to Sheila?
You want to touch on that?
Therapist.
This is a collective effort here. Yeah, so I think we've had to really take advantage of. Now it's coming up. Now. We've had to take advantage of what we have with our electronic devices, right? So we've got Zoom. People have been so creative in using Zoom and FaceTime, and sometimes we need to even go old school, right? So let's send out postcards, right? Let's send out letters. Let's put pen to pad again, and make this thing very fun and interesting. We have to really be creative during this time, because this could be the new norm. So just reaching into maybe some things that you used to do with those individuals in the past, kind of bring those things back up and making something very creative, whether it be a video. You got iMovie on iPhone now. You can create a video and send it to them, and it really just keeps that connection going, and knowing that even though you're apart, you're still connected.
One thing I would mention though is my sister. Oh my gosh! Shout out to my sister Tamika. She actually had a going party, and we all joined a house party one night. On a house party, you can actually play heads up or trivia.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. It was all 4 siblings on the line, and we had trivia, playing trivia on there. House party. What was the name of it? Heads Up. Heads Up was a great game. And so we had fun that night. I mean, so that's something that you can do if you love games, or, even if you don't. We learned a lot of trivia that night, but it was so much fun and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's another way. We also had parties on Zoom. So these are things that we can do in this new normal, and yeah, I'm loving it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Ebony and Osei Harvey.
Yeah.
Y'all rock.
Thanks for having us. Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been amazing. Thank you guys so much. If you would, we're gonna have you go backstage. We'll bring you on after our musical guest if you guys have time.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah,
okay.
We're here.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
All right, we'll see you on the other side. Okay. Carlos, please introduce our musical guests tonight.
Our musical guests tonight are dear friends of ours. Catherine and I have known them for well over 10 years. We actually used to attend the same church for a number of years, and they were part of our praise and worship team. And if you can believe it, I was part of the praise and worship team too. I just sang in the background. But this guy had...
you had a solo, right?
I really did.
Solo.
So but that's been over 10 years ago, okay? But this guy has a voice with ranges that you wouldn't believe. And his wife actually has just this sultry voice that it comes with so much passion. So I'm so excited to introduce our friends from Savannah, Georgia, Yen and Bien Nguyen. Let's welcome them to the show. Woo! What's up? Those are my people. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
No, we're very excited that you all are a part of the show. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how long have you guys been married? How many children do you guys have?
How many children we know we have is
3 boys.
Got 3 boys.
we've been married for 23 years. It's
Whoa!
Awesome.
That is awesome. 23 years. And how long have you guys been singing?
we've been singing.
For at least 25.
Yeah, easily.
At least.
That's what I was thinking. So you guys are going to be doing a number for us tonight, and I would love for you guys to introduce it, but tell us why you selected that particular song to do for us tonight.
Sure. So when you told us that this week's show was around freedom from fear, the very first thing that popped into our minds was the scripture, 1 John 4:18, where it talks about there's no fear in love and how perfect love drives out fear.
Yes.
Because fear has to do with punishment. And so the one who fears is not made perfect in love. So when we started thinking about that and thinking about perfect love, Ian started thinking the song Beautiful Exchange by Hillsong, how that was about Jesus, giving up his life and how, that beautiful exchange there, that showed perfect love to us and overcoming so much in terms of death and, breaking chains. And in there, when you look at the lyrics and it talks about breaking chains, that led me to think about the song Love Is by Vanessa Williams and Brian McKnight, where towards the end there, they talk about love breaking the chains as well, how love aches for every one of us and it takes the tears and the pain, but that those things then make us beautiful and it's that beauty that remains. So
That's beautiful.
Awesome. We look forward to hearing you all.
And we really hope that everybody out there enjoys it.
So without further ado, Yen and Bien Nguyen.
You were near, though I was distant. Disillusion, I was lost in its circuit. Still mercy fought for my attention. You were waiting at the door, and I let you in. Trading your life for our offenses, for my redemption, you carried all the blame, bringing the curse of our condition, perfection to burden erased, my life forgiven. There is nothing that can take this love away, and my only desire and sole ambition is to love you just the same. When only love could make a way, you gave your life in a beautiful exchange. When only love could break these chains, you gave your life
beautiful exchange. Love breaks the chains. Love aches for every one of us. Love takes the tears and the pain, and it turns it into the beauty that remains.
Beautiful exchange.
Yes.
Those are my people.
Awesome.
Those are my people.
Oh man.
So good. So good.
Yes.
Yen and Ben, thank you all so much. You guys have prepared so well, and it came across, and we really appreciate what you did, what you gave us tonight.
Raise the bar. Absolutely.
Raise the bar. It was
Absolutely raise the bar.
amazing. We got some friends that are saying bravo. That was a great job. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Also, for those of you who are interested in further music from Ian, we've got links to an album on Amazon and Spotify in the show notes on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So go check that out.
All right, so we're getting ready to close our show then, Chris. So, Sonia, what was your note to quote tonight?
The first one or the second one?
Either one. Either one.
You know what? Let's do. Well, you know what?
He's going to throw you curveballs. You got to be
threw
ready.
me a
This is what he
curveball,
does.
and-
This is what he does on the podcast all the time.
You know, I am not ready. But let me go back to the first one. I'm sorry, I got it off my phone. Here's the first one.
Blah blah. Marriage is awesome. Blah blah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Chris Stone, 2020.
The quote to note for tonight is:
here we go.
Great marriages don't happen by luck or by accident. They are the result of a consistent investment of time, thoughtfulness, forgiveness, affection, prayer, mutual respect, and a rock-solid commitment between a husband and a wife.
Wonderful.
Rock solid.
It's rock solid then. That is great. So, Osei, any last comments before we power up?
Yeah, sure. So I just wanted to share just a couple scriptures that I think our viewers could kind of take away. First one is 2 Timothy 1:7. And it says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind, self-control. You know, so even in this pandemic, when fear comes along our way, we can counter that. We can counter that with power, with love, and exercising a good, sound mind and good judgment. And then one other scripture is Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing, but with prayer and supplication, make your requests made known to God, and He will come in and fulfill those needs. So I enjoyed being here. My wife and I enjoyed being here, and yeah.
Thank you.
Best show yet.
Yes.
Best show yet.
Thank you guys so much.
That's great.
Appreciate it. So is it that time?
I think it's that Catherine set it off.
Are you ready?
Uh-oh. So let's get powered up.